This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998, Christopher Mitchell, 212th Trooper, Silas 1610, Carmen CJ, Rune Scribble, Legendary Ray Ray, Ash, Kitsu the Kitsune, Just Dragor, and Arctic Ace, and brought to you by Arctic Ace, who requested this topic. If there is a video you want me to make, just head over to Patreon or become a channel member, and select the Pickled Producer tier, since among other benefits, you'll get to make a video request every month, be it the continuation of an existing series or a brand new story. Now, before we get into today's story, I just want to ask you to do me a favor. Hit that like button, since it tells YouTube you like what I do, and check whether you're subscribed, since more than half of my viewers aren't, and it's a free way to keep up to date with all my content. In return, I'll do all I can to keep making regular quality content for you. Thanks, and let's hop in. Our story begins during the episode Tough Luck, just as Gwen corners Charmcaster in the hedge maze. Like Canon, the older girl attempts to play innocent, claiming she never wanted to hurt anyone and that she only does bad things because her uncle makes her. Being an optimist, Gwen wants to believe her, though her actions so far have left a lot of room for doubt. Though thankfully an opportunity quickly arises to prove her sincerity, as at that moment Hex appears, having taken Ben and Grandpa Max hostage, with orders for Gwen to surrender the Keystone of Bezel, unless she wants to see her family meet a painful demise. Springing into action, Charmcaster summons a series of rock bats from her bag which carry her uncle away and drop him in the pool, thus saving the guys and earning Gwen's trust, as she grins that the two of them and Ben should go finish driving off Hex. As her plan had been to lull Gwen into a false sense of security so she could retrieve the keystone for her uncle when the girl's guard is down, Charmcaster refuses, pretending to be scared of the other magician's wrath, though when the younger girl suggests she go back to the rust bucket with Grandpa Max, she instead gets a new, far more opportunistic idea. Why steal the keystone now for Uncle Hex just so he can become more powerful and keep bossing her around, when she could lie low with these do-gooders for a while and snatch it for herself when the ideal moment arrives? With this decided, Charmcaster accepts the offer to sit the fight out, going with Max while Ben and Gwen confront Hex, though unlike Canon, he does not notice the keystone is gone and retreat, instead engaging the pair in battle with the literal tons of water in the pool as his weapon. To this end, he raises his staff high, causing a pillar of water to lift him into the air while the rest thrashes about his tendrils intent on crushing or drowning the two young heroes who foiled him last time. Unfortunately, Ben's watch is currently timed out, meaning it's up to Gwen to take the lead here, with the girl using her acrobatic abilities coupled with the boost from the keystone to keep Hex's attention while Ben evacuates the poolgoers. Then, when the Omnitrix dial turns a most welcome shade of green, the boy transforms into Ripjaws and leaps into the water, using his aquatic physiology to swim up the geyser and come out behind Hex. For a moment, the sorcerer attempts to retaliate, though by now it is too late, as by using his crushing jaws, Ben bites his staff in half, breaking his focus both literally and figuratively, as without the Staff of Ages to channel his power through, Hex, Ben, and all the water fall back into the pool, forcing the wizard to retreat in a hurry so that when Max comes back to check on the kids a little later, Gwen is cleaning up while Ben's floating in the pool, glad to have been near water until he timed out. With this, the team return to the rust bucket where Charmcaster is still waiting for them, and upon hearing Hex was defeated, expresses genuine delight, letting some of her true feelings slip as she somewhat vindictively asks how he likes being weak and helpless for once. Though this reaction disconcerts Ben and Gwen, Max is more sympathetic, stating he can tell how much Hex hurt her, but she doesn't have to worry about that anymore, since she's safe with them. At once, the silver-haired teen is forced to put up her mask once more, as in truth she wants to laugh out loud at the old man's naivety, though recognizing this would go against her agenda, she instead plays along, spouting off words of gratitude as they begin leaving Las Vegas. With the addition of a new companion comes some changes, as from the get-go sparks fly when Charmcaster claims the top bunk, and teasingly tells Ben to do something about it if he has a problem with that. While Ben is more than happy to go all forearms on her, Max breaks this up, stating it's best if the girls have those beds while he helps Ben get comfy up front with him. Unfortunately, things do not get better from here, as while Charmcaster tries to keep up the facade of the poor girl led astray, something in Ben's attitude brings out her innate snarkiness, so that every time he attempts to brag about his past victories against Vilgax, Kevin, 11, and even her uncle, she responds with loud, sarcastic yawns, or cutting comments that suggest it'll be a long time before these two are friends. As for Gwen, she is eager to begin studying spells with Charmcaster, much to the older girl's chagrin, as she finds this goody two-shoes bookworm brat immensely annoying, maybe even more than her dweeb cousin. Nonetheless, it's in her best interest to keep this one happy so she doesn't get suspicious. To this end, she begins teaching Gwen a few basic spells from her book, though nothing that will pose a threat to her when she eventually turns on these losers. In turn, Gwen dedicates herself fully to this pursuit, as with the keystone not lost, she intends to continue being Lucky Girl, and anything that can help her save people and keep her on par with Ben and his aliens is something she is more than happy to put time and effort into. As a result, in spite of how irritating she finds her, Charmcaster can't help but notice that Gwen is a quick study, and possibly probably even a prodigy when it comes to learning spells, with this forcing the Silverhead teen to improvise and insist her new student practice what she's already learned over and over again, since that way at least she won't have to teach her anything actually useful. Finally, there is Charmcaster's relationship with Grandpa Max. For the most part, he does not pry, having enough experience with both teenagers and secrets to know this won't help, though as the adult here, he does at least attempt to learn a few basic things about the girl, such as where she comes from and if she has any family outside Hex she would like to contact. Seeing no point in lying, Charmcaster gives a brief but honest overview, stating she comes from another dimension and that she was orphaned escaping that place, with Uncle Hex being the only family she has left, though whether he'd still call her that after her betrayal she isn't sure. In an attempt to lift her spirits, not to mention as a treat for his grandkids, the old man gets in contact with his friend Donovan Grand Smith, who has invited him to visit his newest underwater resort, with the pair quickly arranging a visit, so that soon the Tennysons and Charmcaster are inbound by jet. Naturally, Ben and Gwen are amazed, staring down at the ocean with wonderment, though Charmcaster is far less impressed, since after flying by magic, being crammed in a tin of recirculated farts for several hours just isn't that appealing. All the same, she does put on the good girl facade she's been using with the Tennyson chumps when Donovan and his grandson Eddie come to meet them, bowing her head and politely introducing herself. Only now does it occur to anyone that Charmcaster is an odd name, or in fact may not be one at all, as while Donovan makes no comment about it, Eddie tersely calls it a dumb made-up title probably from a stupid video game, before demanding she tell them her real name. For a moment, Charmcaster considers showing this little brat just how real her title is, though luckily Max and Donovan step in before anything can happen, as the hotelier chides his grandson and tells him to apologize to the young lady, while Max tries to smooth things over by suggesting they put all this behind them and head down into the resort. Seeing this is wise, Donovan guides his guests down via raft to a wide undersea atrium where he begins showing them around. Like Cannon, an incident with some sharks and a trapped employee forces Ben to step in, though thankfully the man is saved and the kids are taken on a tour by Eddie, who is just as abrasive and stuck up as ever. However, this all changes when he offers them all a joyride on his grandpa's submarine, the underwater manta ray, with Gwen somewhat reluctantly following Ben and Charmcaster as they climb aboard and descend even deeper into the ocean. Here they soon find themselves attacked by a group of mechanical squids who are seemingly intent on destroying anything to do with the resort, including the sub. Naturally, Eddie tries to steer them to safety, though against these aquatic hunters this is a vain hope, with it not taking long before they are swarmed, with the robo-squids hammering on the windshield in an attempt to smash it and drown the children inside. Refusing to die like this, Charmcaster does not hesitate to cast a spell, as she is known of the Tennysons' predisposition to keeping her powers hidden, raising her hands and crying out discombobulous mechano. At once, all the squids stop moving, having been completely disabled by the spell, though the kids are not out of the woods yet, as there is one other piece of technology that was shut down by the spell, the underwater manta ray, which is now sinking fast. Seeing this, an air of panic begins to set in, especially from Eddie, though fortunately Gwen has an idea, as by combining her knowledge of science with one of the useless spells Charmcaster taught her, Camouflate Vaporus, she is able to manifest a steam cloud under the sub which rapidly heats the water, creating an upwelling current that pushes them towards the surface. In spite of himself, Ben cannot help but credit his cousin for this clever move, while even Charmcaster has to admit, albeit internally, that she is impressed, since normally that spell's barely strong enough to steam the milk for a latte, though through all the practice she's been making her do, Little Miss Perfect has seemingly gotten something more out of it. However, as everyone is about to see, it may be a bit early for celebrating, since while Gwen is a prodigy, she is also a novice spellcaster, meaning her mana reserves soon begin running out, causing the spell to start wavering. Fortunately, she is not the only magic user present, as in an act of pragmatic self-preservation, Charmcaster steps in and begins feeding some of her own mana into Gwen, allowing her to complete the spell and push them back to the surface, even if the exertion has left her sweaty and tired. So much so in fact that when Ben and Eddie pat her on the back for saving them, it is a struggle not to stumble forward, though still being on hand, Charmcaster is there to steady the younger girl, as she admits that she wasn't half bad. Modestly, Gwen replies that she guesses she still needs more practice though, and remembering this little twerp she's planning to rob, Charmcaster somewhat aloofly nods that this is why she makes her keep going over the basics, so she better forget any ideas of learning more advanced spells until she can do something like lift the sub on her own. Meanwhile, back in the cockpit, Eddie radios his grandpa to request a raft back to the resort, only to be met with some troubling news that something's causing the resort to flood so they're evacuating. Having a feeling they know what it is, the kids suggest they can come down and help, though here Donovan is quite insistent. Their safety is the top priority, so they're to stay at the landing bay, and he and Max will be up shortly. Figuring it's his choice at the end of the day, Ben, Gwen, Eddie, and Charmcaster do as they're told, so that a short time later the two old men reconvene with them. Naturally, Donovan is sad to have lost his resort, though showing some of the nature that he and Max share, he doesn't let this get him down, instead hugging Eddie, whose safety means more to him than any hotel. He then apologizes that Team Tennyson's vacation has to be cut short, though he promises that when he builds his resort on the moon, they'll be his first guests. With this out of the way, our heroes return to Florida, specifically the Everglades, as it's time for Gator Fest, though when they arrive, it is just a dank, musty swamp. Naturally, Gwen and Charmcaster are both disgusted by this choice of venue, with this giving Ben some small pleasure, as it allows him to tease both his dweeb cousin and the Wicked Witch of the West, who he still doesn't really trust after what she and Hex pulled in Vegas, with this almost being enough to distract him from his fiddling with the Omnitrix. Almost being the operative word, as he still wants to try and unlock this thing's secrets and get some more aliens, though in the end, all he gets for his trouble is some damage as he accidentally pops the faceplate off the watch when he sticks a screwdriver under there. Understandably, this causes the boy to panic, especially when a bright green flash draws the attention of everyone. Thinking fast, Ben makes up some excuse about the weather, though this is weak at best, with Gwen and Charmcaster snarkily challenging him in perfect unison, until Max urges them all to go to bed, since they'll need to be up bright and early for the festivities. Accepting this, the three youngsters head to sleep, with it seeming Max wasn't wrong, both about needing to rise early and the quality of the event, as it's actually a pretty fun time, from Gator-themed games and snacks to watching a group of baby alligators hatch and take their first trip into the water. However, this latter activity is interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Animo and his giant frog. From the doc's insane ravings, it seems he's broken out of prison and is here for revenge on Ben, to which the precocious 10-year-old grins that he'll happily give this quack another taste of his power, as he slams down on the watch and transforms into stink arms? As it turns out, this unholy amalgam of forearms and stinkfly is too heavy to fly and too weak to fight off Animo's frog, making it more or less useless. However, the sight of the flying abomination does give Charmcaster an idea, as she pulls out her bag of tricks and calls forth a swarm of rock bats who pick up Animo and begin carrying him off into the swamp, while giving Ben enough of a distraction to sock the frog in the eye and send it bouncing off after its master. And it is lucky this works, as a few seconds later Ben times out, with there being a few very understandable questions about what he transformed into. Seeing that he's been caught red-handed, the boy reluctantly tells the truth, earning him groans of frustration from his grandfather and cousin, while Charmcaster admits that she can use a repair spell to fix the Omnitrix since she doesn't want to have to keep looking at that gross hybrid, though they need to get something straight. If he messes around with the watch again, the only thing he'll be transforming into is a newt, and she won't be turning him back. Getting this message loud and clear, Ben abstains from fiddling with the Omnitrix for a while, meaning he unfortunately does not unlock Master Control at Niagara Falls, though this comes with the benefit of making him far less obnoxious. However, one thing that does not change is the alliance of Vilgax and Kevin, who arrive to claim the Omnitrix and get some payback for their past defeats. Naturally, all of Team Tennyson jump in to fight this villainous duo, with Ben using Accelerate to perform hit-and-run tactics, while Gwen uses a steam spell to provide cover and Charmcaster unleashes both rock dogs and bats at the invaders. However, even altogether the heroes are no match, as Kevin dissipates the steam with a flick of his wings before shooting down the bats with diamond head crystals, while Vilgax easily dispatches the dogs and humans with a single ground pound that leaves them all staggered. Not just that, but it also causes the cable car they're battling on to begin plummeting towards the rocks and rapids below. Thinking fast, Charmcaster activates a teleportation spell to get herself and the Tennysons out of there and back to the rust bucket, though at the cost of greatly depleting her mana and stamina. Worriedly, Gwen asks if her friend and teacher is okay, though in a grave voice, Charmcaster replies that none of them will be okay unless they run. She's seen the sort of power those bad guys back there have when she fled her home with Uncle Hex, and they aren't going to be able to win this, so they should just go while they still can, since all they'll achieve by fighting is to get themselves killed. Recognizing the rawness in these words, Max kindly but firmly replies this isn't how their family handles problems, even seemingly insurmountable ones, with Ben and Gwen being quick to back him up, as they state there's no way they can let others suffer in their place when they have the power to stop it. Maybe it's the delirium from using up all her mana, but for the briefest of moments, Charmcaster is reminded of her father, of his kindness and his courage when he had stood up to Adwacha, and for that moment, she feels brave too, though, just as soon as this feeling comes on, it passes, and she remembers that she is exhausted and scared, and only using these idiots anyway, so why should it matter to her what happens to them? With this in mind, she allows herself to collapse into her bed, stating she doesn't have enough energy to help them either way, though, smiling reassuringly, Max tells her that she already has, and thanks to the head start she gave them, they might have just enough time to pull off the idea she's given him. Meanwhile, over with Kevin and Vilgax, they have recovered from their plunge and resumed their hunt. Luckily for them, they do not have long to look, as when Ben activates the Omnitrix, they're able to hone in on him. Presently, he is in the form of Heat Blast, while his grandfather and cousin stand beside him, like they think they can actually help in this fight. No matter, since once he's dealt with, they're next. Having rather poor impulse control, Kevin does not hesitate to charge in for an attack when he sees Ben, with this being exactly what the Tennysons have been counting on, as pulling the null void projector from his belt, Max fires it, so that a portal appears behind him and Vilgax and begins sucking them in. Recognizing they've been lured into a trap, the Chimeran warlord furiously orders his young accomplice to grab Tennyson, since they can still achieve their goal if they bring him with them. In an equally furious tone, Kevin barks at Squidface not to give him orders, though all the same, he does still lunge at Ben with his arms outstretched. However, it seems the heroes planned for this too, with Ben now revealing why he chose Heat Blast, as by firing his flames into the ground he's able to give himself a boosted jump, sailing out of Kevin's reach and allowing Gwen to hit him head-on with a turbo wind spell that sends the amalgam tumbling back into Vilgax, so that the pair sail through the null void portal and out of sight. Letting out a sigh of relief, Max deactivates the projector, thus closing off their one means of return, while in turn Ben and Gwen cheer for their success, as that's two of their most formidable foes taken care of. However, they are not the only ones to be amazed by this, as when they turn to re-enter the rust bucket, they see Charmcaster half propped up in the doorway with a look of utter disbelief on her face. Somehow, they actually managed to turn the tables even in the face of such overwhelming odds, something she had always thought impossible. But if they can do it, maybe someday she can too. Maybe someday she can even... No, best not to get distracted by such things now. Not when she has a job at hand, acquiring that keystone in Little Miss Perfect's bracelet. Unfortunately, the time still isn't right, so for now she resumes her role as traveling companion and Gwen's magic teacher, as they continue northwest to Minnesota and the Mega Mallopolis. Truthfully, it is kind of fun to just have a shopping day, since Uncle Hex rarely took her to places like these, and they never stayed long since they didn't exactly pay for stuff, though even the nicest of days can be spoiled by something, as while walking with Ben and Gwen, she spots a little cretin called Sublimino, who claims to be a master hypnotist. Very much doubting this pint-sized mole magician knows the first thing about spells, Charmcaster snarkily volunteers to be hypnotized by him, with it coming as a hilarious shock to Ben and Gwen when she begins clucking like a chicken, bawling like a baby, and acting like a fusion of Ben's aliens. Naturally, when asked afterwards, the silver-haired teen defensively claims she was just playing along for the audience, though the truth of this is brought into question the following morning when they return to the mall to find it has been robbed, with the only clues being some stone residue that is the same pink arcane sigils as Charmcaster's rock monsters. Though, this isn't the only strange thing, as in spite of having gone to bed early and not used any magic yesterday, Charmcaster finds herself remarkably tired and drained of mana. Thankfully, this oddness is explained that evening, as when the clock strikes midnight, Gwen is awoken by Charmcaster climbing out of bed and casting a spell. Being more than a little startled by this rude awakening, the younger girl cries out for her friend to stop it, though this is met by no response, as Charmcaster continues on in an almost trance-like state. Due to having spent more time studying magic, and having the topic in the forefront of her mind due to witnessing a spell being cast, it does not take much for Gwen to put these two actions together, with the ginger girl concluding that Charmcaster must be under some kind of mind control spell. The following morning, when Charmcaster awakens, once more feeling groggy and spent, Gwen proposes this theory to her, and while at first the elder girl scoffs it would take a truly powerful sorcerer to put a spell on her, after a moment of reflection, she realizes there are non-magical means to influence the mind, like that little troll did back at the hypnotism show. In a flash, she is gone, with Ben and Grandpa Max asking Gwen what caused their new companion to teleport, and if she has any idea where she went, though the answer is made obvious a few seconds later, when the sound of smashing glass and a high-pitched scream draws everyone's attention to Sublimino, as he goes flying out of a 10th-story window. Luckily, before he can become a very nasty smear on the asphalt, red light bathes him, causing him to hang in place a few feet off the ground before being spun in midair, while from that window floats Charmcaster, a look of purest hate in her eyes, as she demands to know how he likes being used as a puppet for someone else's amusement. For the first time since they've met her, the Tennysons are reminded that this is Hex's niece, as the pure malevolence radiating off her possibly eclipses even his. Naturally, the sight of two people flirting is enough to draw a crowd of onlookers, especially when Charmcaster starts animating Sublimino's watch chain to start inching its way towards his throat. Though this is where Max speaks up, firmly telling her that this is enough, both because to go any further would be wrong, and because it would ruin any chance they have at secrecy. From his side, Ben huffs that his grandfather shouldn't waste his breath, since he's been saying it from day one. She's a wacko. While in contrast, Gwen pleads with her teacher to listen to Grandpa Max, since this isn't her. For a second, Charmcaster has to resist the urge to laugh out loud, since this is her. Power, cruelty, and the will to use it. Those idiots just don't realize it, since they're all too stupid to see through her ruse. Though, if she were to say that, all of her scheming would be for nothing, with the same being true if she kills this little puke, since it would turn the family against her. Fine, she'll stop. But only because her vengeance against Adwacha is more important than her vengeance on this mole loser. With this decided, Charmcaster releases her spell so that she and Sublimino hit the car park pavement, with Gwen using this opportunity to fill mall security in on a slightly altered version of what happened, so that it is only Sublimino who is taken away for the assorted robberies, while the Tennysons close in on Charmcaster. For a moment, the girl is worried they're about to rebuke her or even cast her out, though instead she is met by a comforting hand on her shoulder, as Max states that he understands why what Sublimino did to her would have upset her so much, but he's proud of her for showing restraint. He's proud of her. For a moment, Charmcaster's brain can barely comprehend this sentiment, as it's one she hasn't heard in such a long time, since before she came to Earth. Though she quickly reminds herself this is because he is a foolish old man who doesn't understand her true motive. That's right, she only spared that cretin for the sake of her grander ambition. That's the reason, and the only reason. She's sure of it. Though, keeping on the topic of Max, it is not long before his 60th birthday rolls around, with the group stopping in a national park to enjoy it. In an attempt to make his day, Ben and Gwen even agree to get along, with the boy reluctantly extending the same courtesy to Charmcaster, so that at least for a while, they all play big happy family. However, it does not take long for the cracks to begin to show, as when the matter of whose job it was to get Max's birthday cake arises, Ben and Gwen are quick to blame each other and start arguing. Not having time for this nonsense, Charmcaster cuts the Gordian knot by summoning one, with this bringing the bickering to an end. Though when Gwen praises her for making it with magic and beams that she can't wait to learn how to do that, the elder girl just mumbles something non-committal, as she doesn't want a self-righteous lecture about how stealing is wrong. From here, Max's birthday goes off without a hitch, as the team eats cake, tells stories, and even plays some campfire games. Feeling that it's not really her place to interfere since she's not family, Charmcaster tries to distance herself, promising to meet up with the others later. However, it seems Max won't hear a word of this, as he fondly states that even if she's not a relative, she's still a member of their team, and his birthday is better for her being a part of it. So if she's willing, he'd love for her to stay. As he says this, he smiles broadly, enough so that it reaches his eyes which crinkle slightly, just like her father's did when he smiled at her. This second thought of her father in such a short period of time is a disconcerting one, as normally she tries to keep that pain tamped way down where it can't distract her, but for some reason, these idiots have been dredging it up lately. No matter, once she's finally rid of them, she'll be free of these feelings too, right? To be honest, she isn't entirely sure, since for the first time a part of her begins to waver, as the thought of screwing over someone who reminds her of her dad feels difficult, even wrong. Worse still, with him and her scheme both being in the forefront of her mind, a question presents itself that she has never thought of before, and quickly wishes she never had. What would her father think of her if he knew everything she'd done and planned to do since leaving Legerdemain? Once again, she isn't sure. And that's where we'll leave things for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts, suggestions, or screams of rage in the comments below.